Good morning. Good morning, Mike. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm beautiful morning over here, Great weather again today.
Beautiful.
Just fantasy season around the corner, man. This is prime hours.
I was woken up to probably the loudest thunder I've ever heard. But aside from that, I mean, I'm here with you and I am ready to draft similar to like we did last week. We are First Seed Sports coming at you with a morning draft. We're on Underdog today. We're gonna jump into a Best Ball Mania draft, and as we await for this lobby to fill, Mike, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about some training camp hype.
Yeah, I mean, every year in the fantasy community, if you follow on social media and everything like that, there's always a handful of guys that it seems like everybody is on. That no matter what, this guy can't fail. And this year so far, I would say it is going to be Rashad Bateman. The amount of love I see that he is getting right now, it's as if he's never going to have a bad game. Never going to have anything go wrong with him. So let's talk about Rashad Bateman and his position this year. Sole number one receiver, had a strong end to his rookie season last year. Not a lot of hype coming into his rookie season. He was kind of just one of those other guys that people were saying Lamar would not be able to get the ball to. And it kind of proved him wrong. And now he has such an opportunity going into this year. I love it. I mean, I can't go against the hype that he's receiving right now. It's a guy that his ADP, I feel like, is still up in the air until we get closer to August here, until things settle down. But what do you think about this preseason hype on Rashad Bateman?
I definitely think it's well warranted. I think him finally having that number one role in this Baltimore offense is definitely worth the hype. I think he's going to get that. He's going to make that next level jump. I don't think he'll be a top 10 receiver, but I think he definitely has like that top 15 potential in this offense at least. But I think the hype is worth it. I think him kind of jumping to that level where he can finally get those wide receiver one targets in an offense that I think we saw make a leap to kind of being a better passing offense last season. But at the same time, I think we've seen a lot of rumors that they're trying to get back into being their kind of run first, run heavy offense. But who knows? Either way, I'm excited. I've been jumping on that Bateman hype. I've been trying to draft him wherever I could, but some people might love him a little bit more than I.
Right. Yeah, and it's always interesting with this preseason hype. It's always funny how, like I said, there's one or two guys that never get any hate. It's like they're never going to have a bad game ever. And it's fun to see it. And you got guys going around like that all the time. Now, here's something that I think a player that everybody is against so far in this preseason, and that's DK Metcalf. I have not heard one good thing about DK. That people are excited about him. Everybody's saying avoid at his ADP. They don't want to touch him. What's your take on DK Metcalf, and will he have a better or worse year than he did last year?
Ooh, let's see. Where did he finish last year? I will say, so let me pull that up. But while I figure that out, I don't think he'll have too bad of a season. But I don't think he's definitely not what he was worth last draft season. But I do think it's tricky. It's not to say I don't believe in him, but I think where the price point would be right for him is kind of like that wide receiver 2, like deep wide receiver 2 range. Because I think he probably has a lot more hype upside in that area than the other guys in that range. But I don't know. I think what we'll see from him is a lot of touchdown upside. And if he kind of gets that double-digit touchdowns, because he most likely can, and he'll probably just be a huge end zone target in this offense. So who knows? I hope he pans out. I really like him as a player, but in this offense, if it's Drew Lock, it's going to be hard to really crave him on my fantasy team.
Right. Yeah, and we, as we all know, I mean, Pete Carroll's always been a run-first guy. He's always made his offenses around the run, and it looks like, again, Chris Carson is not going to be playing this year, so you're going to see Rashad Penny and a healthy dose of Kenneth Walker out of the backfield. And it's interesting, you got DK, who is not out there alone. You still got Lockett out there that's going to be taking targets away, and let's see if Drew Lock can get him the ball. I wouldn't say he's necessarily a fade. I believe looking at his ADP, it's a whole round and change later than he was getting drafted last year, which still may not be enough, but he's definitely a guy that if I'm going into a draft with two strong running backs and I already have a number one receiver, I wouldn't mind taking a chance as the number two receiver to see what happens there. It's something that, like, I'm not expecting much on a game-to-game basis, but I feel like him just being out there in general gives you that high touchdown upside, like you said, someone that I'd be excited to have as a wide receiver too, with potential to still be that guy as a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, so last season he finished as a wide receiver 10, and this season, I mean, right now in Underdog, he's being drafted as the wide receiver 23, which, I don't know, at that price point, I might be interested. He's going right behind guys like Terry McLaurin, Allen Robinson, like a few spots behind Jerry Jeudy. I may prefer Jeudy out of that group, but I think before Terry and Allen Robinson, I might jump on some DK.
Okay, so you're talking about some DK before Allen Robinson here.
I like Allen Robinson. I like his spot. I like the new role that he's going to slot into in LA. But I think DK, I feel like it's easier to say DK is going to have a huge target share as compared to Allen Robinson, who will just be playing second fiddle to the most targeted player in the NFL.
Right.
But I mean, I love Allen Robinson, but if I had to choose between those two, I'd probably pick DK.
Okay. See, I respect that. I'm on the opposite side of it. And it's hard to say that I take an actual wide receiver 2 on a team over a true wide receiver 1. I just believe that what we saw in that OBJ role last year, Robinson's going to be so consistent and, in my opinion, better than OBJ was. It's really hard for people to look past what he did in Chicago, and that last year is definitely not an indicator. Even when he had the ball, he was making free catches and doing this and that. So this is a guy that I'm excited for. I wouldn't necessarily say it would be a whole round of a difference between him and Robinson. I could literally see them being drafted in the same round. So that's another guy I don't think can fail this year. I think him being on the Rams, man, as long as Stafford's healthy, Robinson is going to show out this year. That's another guy I'm very, very excited for.
I don't know. I love Allen Robinson. I think I'm just a little scared because he had a down year last year, and maybe, he had a poor rotation of quarterbacks, but maybe it was skill-based. I still believe Allen Robinson has it. I still believe he could thrive in this LA offense, but I think there's still that potential that he could just kind of be okay.
Right. Yeah, it could happen. I mean, he's getting up there in age as well. Let's see if he could still be as explosive and see what happens there. And as we're talking here, we got the notification. We are ready to go.
Yes. Let me bring this up. We've got our draft is finally filled. And here
Awesome.
we go.
And
Let's
I am
see.
going to make a quick exit here. As you guys
Yep.
can see, I'm having some cam issues. I am going to be right back. Hopefully this is fixed in the next few seconds.
All right. Well, Mike jumps off and jumps back on. Looks like Mike will return and have the 5th pick. I think last week he was at pick 6. So hopefully he picks a few different guys. And I'm at the back of the draft at pick 11, which I'm a little excited about because I don't think I've drafted this deep in the draft in Underdog this season yet. So having a back 2 pick, I'm excited. Try something new. Mike, you're at pick 5. How do you feel about that? I think you were at 6 last time. So what are you expecting?
Yeah, the middle picks have been nice to me. And you know what? The more I draft in the middle, the more I'm even liking it for actual redraft leagues this year. I think you can't go wrong. The first 3 picks this year, there's a strong bridge between McCaffrey, Henry, and JT. And after that, you got guys like Eckler, Najee, and you could throw in Mixon. There's a bunch of guys right after that hump. But after those first 3 picks, it really does come down to preference. Best ball is going to look a little bit different, but okay. We got Jonathan Taylor, Cooper Kupp, Henry here. This is going to get interesting. There's been a lot of talk this year about not wanting to be in the spot where you have to take CMC. Everybody's still scared about the injury. How much stock do you put in the past 2 seasons of him getting injured? And would you be scared to draft him this year?
I'm personally not afraid to draft him. I think that 3 and 4 spot is perfect for him. Maybe 2 if you're really feeling it. I'm not afraid of him. I can totally understand why, but I think McCaffrey, I don't know. I think that upside is too huge to completely ignore. So I'm biting. I'll take McCaffrey. I'm not like advocating take McCaffrey, but I don't know. I'd be happy with him.
Right, and I can't lie. In the middle of a draft here, I would have been happy too, but he went the pick before me, so I ended up going with Justin Jefferson. Switched it up just a little bit. I think that's very important too, doing these underdog drafts here, just to have some good variety of who you have, what you're going with. So I believe last draft I had the 6th pick, as you had mentioned, and I went running back. So Justin Jefferson's a little switch up here. I believe that he's going to be the wide receiver 1. So, I mean, why not, And after I take Justin Jefferson, followed up by Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, and Dalvin Cook. And there goes Austin Eckler. Who are you looking at here, Kyle, coming up?
Well, as you asked, I was hoping it would be Najee, but obviously it wasn't. So I'm going to take the guy who switched teams and I still think can ball out just at the same pace as he was past 5 seasons. Devontae Adams, I love him. I love his new spot, and I'd love to take advantage of that. I think if he didn't switch teams, I think he'd be ranked as like the wide receiver 2 or 3, and I think he'd steps into a similar position, and I'll jump on that. And then for my 2nd pick, I'm taking Joe Mixon. I think this is my first share of Mixon and Underdog, so that's what I'm excited about. Nice. I think I'd probably prefer – I don't know. I think I'd take Mixon over Swift. I think that's a combo that I'm just like, oh, I'd be happy with either one, like really happy. I think they both have huge upside this season. But I took Mixon for the variance because I didn't have him, but also because I think he's up for another great season like he had last year.
Yeah, and you can't go wrong. And you look at the running backs there, Mixon and Swift, and after that, there is a little bit of a drop-off in terms of what I'm expecting in PPR leagues this year from these guys. You got guys like Aaron Jones, Kamara, who we don't know what the legal situation is going on with right now. The fantasy community is kind of freaking out with the David Johnson news, him visiting and possibly getting signed. But yeah, there's a little bit of a drop-off there. And then you got guys like, there goes Fournette. So interesting here. I'm not a big Tyreek Hill in the first 2 rounds this year, so that's a no-go for me as I'm looking at this one here. I'm actually going to go with Saquon Barkley. a guy who I think injured past few years. I think this is going to be his final kind of prove it year to show that he's still got it and he's still in his prime. I'll take a chance. It's very similar to his situation last year as well. He had a big question mark on him. Kind of everybody was trying to avoid him. He still squeaked into that first round, and he ended up getting hurt on a bad team. I think the team has some upside this year. They really had a great draft, and it'll be interesting with that revamped offensive line, new head coach over there. We'll see what's going on this year. I got some faith in Barkley.
Yeah, I really like Barkley this year too. I think he's a guy that I would absolutely love to grab in the middle of the second. I think as drafts kind of start to ramp up, his ADP might jump up a little bit. I think we'll see that trend kind of for a lot of running backs. Because you see it every year. Running backs kind of command the first and early second round picks. So I think right now we're seeing a lot of underdog and best ball ADP. And they're showing a lot of receivers. And I think that's just kind of what everybody drafting best ball really likes to have is a steady wide receiver. But, I think redrafters kind of have a different mindset in building their teams. So I think as the season nears, we'll see a lot of these running backs, especially these four right here, Swift, Fournette, Barkley, and Kamara, kind of make their way probably into the first and early second.
Right. Yeah, and it's always interesting. The ADPs before we actually get going in August here are very, very interesting. And it can really throw a lot of people off. I don't put too much stock into ADPs with players, depending on where they're going, obviously. And let's see here before I go on. I have to make a pick. And I believe last draft with you, Kyle, I was in a position in the third round where I could have taken Josh Allen and I didn't, and I regretted it. And I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm going to take Josh here, lock up my potential or projected MVP candidate here. And I'm going to rock with that. I got one of each right now. I'm feeling good.
I love that. That's a great pick. Josh Allen, I think in the middle fifth, makes sense. I think his upside is so worth that first QB. And I know you say this with every first quarterback that's taken every year in drafts, but I don't know. Josh Allen, I just love the way he plays. I think he's got a ton of upside, and I think he's probably got the clearest shot to be a top 3 quarterback, but most definitely the number 1. And that's kind of why you dropped him first, because you're like, okay, he's got the best chance to be a top quarterback any given week. And that's why you take that pick so early on a QB.
Yeah, and I'm feeling good here, and honestly, I'm looking very similar to your team before I made that pick here. What are you looking at coming up here? Anybody that pops off the screen to you at this in the late third round here?
Right now, I'm really hoping Pittman makes it. If it's not him, it's going to be Connor.
Nice.
I really like James Conner. I feel like the leaving of Chase Edmonds in Arizona kind of allows James Conner to have that RB1 just overall role that he had that dominated last season. So for that, I'm happy to take advantage of that and have that on my team. I saw J.K. Dobbins and Lamar Jackson just go right before me at that turn. So let's see. I basically have my
same team. That is an interesting stack there.
That is interesting. That's definitely a stack you don't see often.
Right.
So here's where I get a little tricky. I'm going to take Sutton before my time goes out.
Love it. Love it.
I like Sutton. I think for me, he's my favorite receiver in Denver this year.
Same.
But I don't know. I feel like they could both be fantastic. Jalen Waddle, I have a hard time getting any shares of Miami receivers because I don't want to take that gamble on who's going to be great. They're both going to be great, but there could be slump weeks for both of them. They play a tough defense. Tua can't get it to both of them, and next thing you know, it's just a full run game.
Right, with the 9 to 10 running backs that
Yeah,
Miami
yeah.
started. So yeah,
So
that's a great
Miami
point.
receivers are tricky for me to really invest in, especially when I pick Sutton. I know he's going in an offense that has kind of committed to passing when they dive right in for Russell Wilson. But yeah, and then DJ Moore is stuck with Sam Darnold as his QB, so it's always hard to invest in that.
Yeah, and interesting enough, I'm on the clock here. As we were talking about it before, oh, and there goes Allen Robinson.
Yeah.
And that was going to be my pick. And it's funny, Allen Robinson was right next to DK Metcalf on this list, interesting enough. So, yeah, looking at this pick here, I'm not going to go Judy. I'm definitely going to take Scary Terry here. I believe that all the stuff going on with him right now is warranted. They're not paying him. He's not showing up to minicamp. They're going to get him a deal. They're going to get him on the field. And you know what? If they don't, he's going to go be the number one somewhere else. So definitely not scared to take him here. He's going to be absolutely fine. But you had made a good point when you took Sutton there. The fourth round is still not a spot that I want to take anybody. If I'm going to take a wide receiver, I don't want to take one that's not going to be a wide receiver one. And I think that's what you did there. You went with Sutton, the guaranteed one in that offense. And
I wouldn't say guaranteed, but at least has a great shot at it. I think Deontay Johnson and who else was there? DJ Moore probably have the better shots at being their wide receiver one. But yeah, same. Your point continues either way.
Right.
Targeting that wide receiver one.
Right, and quote unquote, obviously you never know what's going on here with that offense. You can say at least it's a team with higher upside and definitely a team with the best QB out of all those receivers that were there. So I really like that pick you made. I would have done the same thing. It's not really a spot in the fourth, fifth round where if you are going to take a wide receiver, you want to take a shaky one with big question marks. And I also think that was Waddle in that position. It's very hard to say. I feel the same way with you on these Miami receivers where I don't know how to feel about it. I'm scared, and I'm not taking them early. Someone's going to have to take a chance on them. Obviously, they are both going to go most likely before the fifth round in redraft. And I don't know if I'm going to be one of them this year. You know, it's very, very scary. You don't know what's going to happen. I don't trust Tua. They got a bunch of guys on that team that the ball has to be spread around to. It's going to be difficult, you know. And I'm trying to think as well. I know that there's a lot of situations like this in the league where there's two guys that really make it hard to decipher between. And another place I think is Kansas City. And as we see Juju Smith go there, Kansas City's wide receivers are another big question mark. You know, you got the true number one in Kelsey, and besides that, it's not going to be easy to decipher there.
And yeah, that's gonna be one that the offseason definitely kind of helps us pinpoint how it's going to look for the season, because right now it's a fog.
Another interesting spot here. I'm going to go ahead and take Rashad Bateman, who we were talking about. The preseason hype train was growing on him for lots of reasons. Breece Hall, I'm not a huge fan of. I still think it's a bad team that's trying to find their way back. I don't want Breece Hall in his first year. Montgomery would have not been a bad pick here, but I think as well the Bears are going through a little bit of a transition here, new coaches, new everything this year. So that's going to be another interesting team. I went with the for sure number one Bateman there. Chris Godwin would have been the pick if he was healthy, but with the news on him being out for a few weeks to start the year, definitely don't want to take him in best ball. But I guarantee you somebody in this draft will be taking him in the next few picks here without knowing how long he's going to be out for. And Kyle, you were on the clock sitting at 2-2 here.
Here I am. Let's see. I'm going to take a guy that I really like in Darnell Mooney. Oof. I mean, we talked about it earlier. taking that wide receiver one in an offense. If Brandon Cooks were available, he would have been my love and definite pick for that. Mike, I loved your Bateman pick. That is fantastic. But yeah, Mooney is the one wide receiver in Chicago. And where did he finish last year? I know I'm on the clock. But last season he finished wide receiver 23. And as probably the 30th wide receiver off the board, I'm happy to take that. And for my next pick, I'm going to switch it up a bit. Ooh. This is going to be an interesting... Oh, dang it. Right as I hit draft, I got auto-picked, and I'm not too disappointed. I was trying to pick Kyler Murray, but...
Okay, yeah.
I spoke too quick. I spoke too much. But, yeah, I went with Amari Cooper. I'm not upset about that. That's my first share of him. I'm happy to get a little bit of variance in that department. But I wanted Kyler. I wanted a QB. I like his spot this deep. I think he could still be, when he's on the field, he's a great fantasy QB. So he was somebody I wanted to lock up, but now I have to set my eyes on somebody else.
Yeah, and that's probably who I would have gone with there too. It's funny, Cooper's not even a bad pick. I think with a starting QB or a backup, you're still looking at the number one, so
totally.
Not bad there. I'm sitting on the clock here. We're on deck here. 3 wide receivers who I love all of them. They're all number ones. I got a true number one running back. Got my QB, and I'm still looking running back here. It's very funny because I like some of the guys on lower on the running back list here. Gibson's a scary guy for me. I think Mitchell, you're gonna get what you're gonna get, but San Francisco always switches up who they got going here. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna snag Gibson here. It's not a pick I absolutely love. You want to talk about camp news as well. It seems like his kind of energy on him is negative at the moment, especially with what Rivera's saying. Everything that's going on with that franchise in general. How do you feel about Gibson this year? And in redraft, do you think it would be warranted as a 6th-round pick?
In the 6th round, I feel like he is a great value because I think he could still be a top 20 receiver. And I think right now, what is he going as? I don't even have it right here. But he's definitely a late RB2. And for that value, I think it's hard not to kind of see some interest in because he has that upside. And I don't think they're going to completely wipe him out of this offense. He's still a good player, and a good coach in Ron Rivera would not just not use him. And for that, I'm still on board. I think he's a great value if you were looking for kind of a middle tier mid-draft QB or running back. I think he's a great pick.
Definitely. And as we're talking here, I saw on the draft board here, Jalen Hurts went before Kyler Murray. That I don't understand at all. I don't think
then you didn't own Jalen Hurts last season and know the joy of just constantly having a QB1.
Consistent. I know. He had the most, I think, QB1 finishes out of any QB last year.
Yep.
In terms of finishing top 12 week in and week out. So
he finished as the QB9, and I think it's a combo of him getting A.J. Brown in his offense, so they're going to pass more, and I think that allows him to be able to be more efficient on the ground, which you love to draft as a QB. Plus, and I mean, comparing him to Kyler Murray, you don't know. Kyler keeps threatening to not play. So There's always that minor threat. But I personally love Jalen Hurts. I totally understand why he's being picked before Kyler. But I can understand why you wouldn't, because I owned plenty of Jalen last year and I loved it.
Right. Yeah. And consistent basis. That's beautiful. In best ball, however, I feel like I would go with Kyler still, even in redraft, just for those boom weeks, the weeks that he's going to be dropping 30, 40. Those are the weeks I would look for as a QB, and then draft my backup to be that give me 20 points kind of guy. So it's still not a bad pick. The consistency is there. He just got another great receiver to help him out, so not bad at all. I was on the clock there, and I went with Pollard here, and I know that could raise a few eyebrows. You got guys like A.J. Dillon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, Kenneth Walker even, and then a few guys down that list. For what Pollard did last year, and I'm going to have to look up what he finished as, I'm excited for the season ahead. Go ahead, Kyle. You're on the clock here, and you go with Clyde. So yeah,
I went with Clyde. I think I took him last week. I love Clyde. I think he's a fantastic value, and I think he's being drafted much later than he needs to be, but I understand why. People are afraid. He hasn't shown much, but I think he's still the RB1 in this offense, and I love it.
Right, yeah, definitely the RB1. I don't think Ronald Jones is going to step in and take that RB1 role from him. I do think Ronald Jones will be more involved on the goal line, but in terms of pass catching, I know that is not what Ronald Jones is known for, so I think there's no threat there to who's going to be catching passes out of the backfield all season long. I know they signed McKinnon to a one-year deal, but even McKinnon, they kind of failed to get him involved last year that much. And there you go. You got your QB, and you got my boy Dak. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I went with Dak. I love Dak. I was between him and Brady, but I look at you compare the two, and it's hard to say that Brady has higher upside than Dak when Dak could have another career year. I think Dak is kind of like a bona fide top 5 or 8 QB, and for that, I'll take him. He's always like a year away from being the QB1, and who knows? Maybe it's this year. But the Cowboys, and you'll agree with me as a Cowboys fan, I think the Cowboys always seem to limit him. Yeah,
absolutely. And back on the clock here. Interesting. I was eyeing a little bit of Kenneth Walker here. I believe I do have my back-to-back pick coming up. Oh, I do not. Okay. So this one's going to be a little bit tricky here, but I'm going to go with some MVS. And I know I had him in the last best ball draft as well. This is another guy that I think the preseason hype on him right now is that he is going to be the guy that emerges as the number one receiver. And it's another tricky spot. It's another team such as the Broncos where you kind of don't know who the guy is going to be yet. And instead of taking him in the third, fourth round, or anybody on those teams in the third, fourth round, you wait till the fifth round, I believe, such as you did, to snag your guy. And I'm going to try to get the number one in Kansas City, Can't hurt there. And Kenneth Walker would have been my next pick, and he goes right after here. Interesting. Going back to my point really quick on Pollard, it looks like he was RB28 last year, PPR. And A.J. Dillon was a few spots above him on that list. Do you think A.J. Dillon takes that next step this year? I mean, the preseason kind of energy around the two is that without Davante Adams, Aaron Jones catches more passes. He lines up in the slot more. What do you think is going to happen in that backfield? Does A.J. Dillon, does he take that next step this year?
Dillon, it's tricky because they lost their offensive coordinator and they lost their OC, and they seem to be trying a few different things because they lost Davante Adams. So I don't know. I feel like they've got a great young running back in A.J. Dillon, and I don't see why they won't use him a lot. I haven't seen many reports out of Green Bay on either Dillon or Aaron Jones. So it's hard, and we'll wait. but they're both going to be used. They're going to be utilized healthily. And I think Dillon, I took Clyde after him, but if Clyde were taken and if Dillon was there, I probably would have taken him. I like his usage and the fact that they're most likely going to use him a lot.
Right. Interesting spot for me here. My pick was 100% going to be Dawson Knox to get my stack. And thanks to Johnny Pineapples, messed that up for me. So I'm going to go ahead and take Goddard. I don't think that there's a huge gap in between the two in terms of what they're going to produce this year. Goddard was already kind of taken over with the Ertz vacancy last year. He had a few good games to finish out the year. I like him going into this year. I think Hurts can make it work. He's got another weapon to basically stretch the field a little bit, get that underneath stuff opened up. So I like Goddard there.
Yeah, I love Goddard. I can't stress enough how much I've been drafting him. I think he is the 6th tight end off the board, maybe even 7th. But either way, I think he has potential to be the tight end 2 or 3. But I think he could elevate this year when this Philly offense kind of makes a jump. And then I'm on the clock, and I'm going to do something that I love to do kind of in these middle rounds on Underdog. I'm going to go back-to-back QB. I feel like the value in these QBs are too good. And plus I get Derek Carr that I get to stack with Devontae Adams. So I get that Vegas offense a little bit, a good chunk of it. And I think Carr has a huge, huge potential year this year where he's got that stud receiver and then he's still got his reliable guys and Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow.
And a new OC as well. That's an offense I feel like this year, except the running backs, I want a piece of everybody on that offense. The running backs I do not want to touch. I have a strong feeling it's going to be a committee. That's also what the community is saying. And I had that thought process at the end of last year anyways, the way that they finished up over there. So the running backs I will not touch, but give me Derek Carr, give me Adams, give me Renfrow, give me Waller late. I love that offense this year.
Yeah. And then I just took good old Zach Ertz. I think what we saw from him last year in Arizona when he was traded, I think he was a top 10 tight end. And for that, I'll take advantage of that again. And who knows? Maybe he's another top 5 tight end. Maybe he just kind of middles out in like tight end 13. Either way, I think he'll have a few huge games. And for best ball, can't ask for anything more.
Interesting. I don't know if you spotted this. I see Rashad Penny listed about 2 to 3 rounds in ADP lower than Kenneth Walker. Very, very interesting. There must be something going on at camp right now that Kenneth must be jumping off the screen for this to fill out the way it does, especially with Penny ended last year.
I think it's less about hype for him, but more the lack of hype that we've seen for Penny. And just everybody is so used to, I think they're so conditioned to just being like, okay, ignore Rashad Penny, is going to be hurt for the year. Where I personally think I'm on the opposite, and I'll be taking, I think of the remaining running backs, other than probably Rashad White, he probably has the most potential this year. So, I mean, this late in drafts, I'd be happy to take Penny because you're kind of most likely taking a shot at the dark on most of these running backs anyways.
Right. I'm a little bit surprised to see Cordero drop this late. He kind of had that fantasy breakout year last year. For his age, it's funny to say he had a breakout season. And there he goes. Okay. Yeah, that would have been my next pick. He was falling a little bit too low there. I couldn't pass up on the share of Watson there. in Green Bay. That's another guy that could be a potential number one getting drafted this late, and I didn't want to pass that up. But
Totally.
yeah, and herein lies Chase Edmonds and Rashad Penny. And the Rashad, exactly like you said, a lot of word on him not being able to finish the season. That is very interesting. I believe that the ADPs in the first Underdog draft we did were not that far apart with those two. It was a lot closer. And now it's growing kind of as the weeks go on here. And that's going to be interesting to see if that translates to redraft as well, where we get around late July, early August here. Okay. Back on the clock here. I have an interesting decision. This is interesting. I am going to go with my guy Kirk. I'm going to get my QB2. Kirk is on his last year of his contract here. Kind of a prove-it year. I also have Justin Jefferson, who I took in the first round. So in terms of stacking them, I really like it if they were to have that Justin Jefferson 40-point game. I would bet anything that Kirk Cousins is going to have a 30-point game in that range, which he can do. He's proven it before. So, yeah, nice backup there. If he somehow is able to outscore Josh Allen, he will be my starting QB there. I love it.
Yeah, plus they get a new head coach, a new system, and I think a lot of people are really interested in Kirk this year, and I'm one of them. I think he's a fantastic late QB, and probably he's always been. The past few years in Minnesota, he's been consistently like a tight end 12 to 15, and I think he's going to be great this year too.
All right, on the clock here.
Back on the clock, I'm going to take a guy who probably remains on this list and still has potential to take over a backfield. That's Damion Pierce. In Houston, I think that backfield is completely up for grabs. So I'm in. For this late in round 11, I'll take advantage of that.
Yeah, you look at the running back list right now, that is potentially the last running back that actually has a shot to take over the number one role. So I love that pick. This late, man, to get a potential RB1, you can't pass that up.
Oh, yeah. And I'm looking again. I think I'm going to take advantage of a tight end 2 and Pat Freiermuth. I can't stop drafting Freiermuth as a backup tight end. I hate the phrase backup tight end, but, to pair Zach Ertz and Pat Freiermuth together, I think I'll have a consistent tight end to fill in that slot in best ball.
Oh, yeah. That's a beautiful pick. I think he's going to be so consistent this year with whatever quarterback gets thrown in there. They're going to have to rely on him if stuff isn't working on the outside. I think he'll be a great guy.
Yeah.
Pat also fits into that redraft, like, I'm not going to take an early tight end, I'm going to wait type of guy. It's a guy with great upside that you could literally take in probably the 9th, 10th round, even later possibly. It's a beautiful, beautiful top 10 upside as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, back on the clock here. I'm going to go with some Ronald Jones. I think with just Clyde and not being able to produce on the goal line, I have a strong feeling. I can't say I know. I love to say that a lot. I have a strong feeling Ronald Jones is going to take over that goal line role, especially from what we've been hearing from Andy Reid and camp in general. I think Ronald Jones steps up, takes that goal line role, and given Clyde's injury history, he hasn't had any major injuries, but he has been banged up the past 2 years here. And I kind of like Ronald Jones. If he had to step in and be the workhorse, he could definitely do it. So I kind of like that upside there. Another running back that's really cool to take this late in the draft, knowing that He's probably never going to be in my starting lineup for the first few weeks, but God forbid something happens to Clyde, or if he's able to get in the end zone once or twice, he'll definitely squeak his way in that lineup for me. And I think a running back this late with such high touchdown and red zone upside, that's another guy I don't want to let go. So I really like that pick there as well.
Yeah, and then after you went, another late tight end target that I've been having this year, and that's Irv Smith. I love me some Irv. I've been high on him for the past few years, but I think now he'll finally have a healthy season in front of him and probably, hopefully, have a good year. And I personally think this is the year where he kind of becomes the second target in this offense because, I don't know, Adam Thielen has to dive off at some point.
Yeah, he does. I mean, and with him, he hasn't been able to make a full season lately as well. So, another interesting spot here. I'm looking for upside. Lots and lots of upside here. And this is going to be interesting, but I'm going to actually get my next tight end, and that's going to be Albert O. Absolute great position he's in. He could be the starter. The only other guy behind him is the guy Greg Dulith, I believe is his last name, who they had just, or Dulich, who they just drafted. That's another pick that could have great upside. Russell Wilson has never been able to produce a top 12 fantasy tight end, so that's a little bit worrisome there. But new coach, new OC, new system, new team. I like Albert O. He's got a great frame, great size. He could be the starting tight end there, and who knows? He could sneak into that top 10 by the time the year's up here. So,
yeah, I think I'm with you. Before my pick, I do want to point out, Team 2 seems to have done. Oh, I'll do it after I pick. But Team 2, Mike, I'll have you check it out. The Des Moines Rhea seems to be having a fantastic 0 RB draft. I think he picked the 4 best guys. But let me make this pick real quick. All right, now I can highlight it. So this guy in the second overall pick, he went Kupp, Hill, Williams, Kittle, Deontay, Drake London, Treylon Burks, took 2 QBs. And then this run of running backs is, I think, the best run of running backs he could have had after starting the draft with no running backs.
Yeah.
You've got two super high upside running backs in Gainwell and Herbert, as Gainwell could be a starter any given week. Khalil Herbert is a fantastic substitute for Montgomery. And then Edmonds could be the number one RB in Miami. And then Patterson, I mean, we saw what he did last year. Why can't he do it again this year? I think that's a great run. I'm impressed.
Let's see what you go with here, and I'll give my take. I'm not a huge fan of the 0 running backs there. James,
I'm not a fan of it either, but I think he pulled it off as best as he could.
Yeah, that was going to be my point. Is it's something I would never try, especially
that's a gamble. Any of those guys could have gone, and it would have looked a lot uglier.
Yeah, exactly. It would have looked a lot worse. He kind of really, really did luck out with who dropped to him there. It's something I would not do. I don't feel comfortable not having at least one good running back. But yeah, that's he's got a lot of question marks, but a lot of question marks that could boom, like you said, with a lot of upside. So it couldn't have worked out better for him. Very bold, considering that they only allow you to start a certain amount of wide receivers, and he kind of went very, very heavy there. And now I'm back on the clock. Let me focus up here. Lots of great upside guys. I'm going to go with another great upside guy in Gus Edwards. We've talked about him plenty, how he's just so consistent on the ground there. That system allows him to be consistent. And it's another guy that he's going to split his time in the backfield, and God forbid he becomes a starter. You could pencil him in for top 15 running back, I think, on any given week. the way that they run the ball over there. So another high upside guy. But yeah, going back to the zero running back strategy, would you be comfortable with those four guys if you had to go into a redraft season this year?
Oh, no way. That's just how I like to look at my team. I like to have that certified number one running back where you don't even have to worry about it. You're like, all right, that guy's going to have at least 12 points a game. So
right,
you can rely on him. You don't have to worry about him not getting touches. I always like to look at my team and make sure I have that guy, because if I don't, then I'm stressing, and I probably have a bunch of RBs that I'm probably worried about playing the wrong one any given week. And I think that's the worst part. And probably why it's a more favored strategy in in best ball, because then you're just like, I don't have to worry about making those lineup decisions. Any of them can pop off any given week, but they will definitely be in my lineup. Whereas redraft, you could be taking shots on these late running backs and consistently play the wrong one.
Yeah. It's a lot harder when you're forced to pick which guys you want in that lineup. Yeah, that's a scary situation, man. There's nothing worse than looking at a redraft going into the week and you look at the wire and there's no one there and you're like, wow, I'm stuck with these guys. That's one of the worst feelings in fantasy. And wow, okay, my eyes are not telling me wrong. Someone did draft Julio Jones here. That's that's interesting. You know, I mean, guy signs to the right spot. You never know. Like, why not? Why not, I guess, take a flyer on him? He still had a few rounds here if he wanted to wait a little bit. I'm not sure if anybody else would have taken him, but, you know, that could
with a name like with a name like Big Beans, you got to get your guy.
Big Beans was not going to pass on him here.
So I took a guy that, I love this man, Curtis Samuel. I love drafting him, and I will always love drafting him. I think he's gotten a few hype pieces written about him this past few weeks, just about how he's going to be used like he was a few years ago in Carolina, because Ron Rivera loves himself some Curtis Samuel, and for that, I'll take the shot on him. And then double tight end at the turn. All right.
Everybody's got that double tight end now, it looks like.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through. It looks like it.
I can't believe this is real, but yeah, Julio Jones went before Deshaun Watson here. What's going on with that? How do you feel? Obviously, nobody's going to know from a legal's perspective what's going on yet. And I love the Mechie pick there.
Oh,
beautiful pick.
I comboed my Houston players. I got Damion Pierce a few rounds ago, and then I get John Mechie. I don't know. I love me some Houston rookies this year, but one of them will be good, and if both of them are, then that's even better.
Yeah, Houston's obviously not going to be the greatest team. They're still rebuilding. They're going to have to figure all that out. But yeah, I love Mills, man. I got a lot of faith in him. And I think the fantasy community is backing him as well. He's got some strong momentum going into this year in terms of even taking that next step now that he has a season under his belt. I'm excited for that team in Houston. The front office, I mean, they can't do any worse, knock on wood. We'll see what's going on there. All right, on the clock again here. Very interesting. I believe I took this guy in the last draft we had as well. And that's going to be Paris Campbell. I love me some Campbell. I still think he has a shot to redeem himself over the way his career started, especially with that gruesome injury. He's back and ready to go. Why not take a flyer on him, you know?
Oh, yeah. I love Paris Campbell. Every week I like to export the Underdog ADP, and Campbell, I think because of my constant drafting of him, his ADP has skyrocketed. I think he's up like 14. I think it's 14 wide receiver positions. So like
Mm-hmm.
where he just went, I don't know, wide receiver 72, for example. Last week or 2 weeks ago, he was wide receiver 86. That was probably too high. Maybe it's like 54 to 68. But either way, he's jumping. I think a lot of people are following up and enjoying the Paris Campbell price, similar to us.
Right. Yeah, that's what these late rounds are all about, man. You get the one guy in these next few picks here that could actually win the whole thing for you, get you in contention to win some good money in these drafts here. Interesting. This guy ahead of me has 3 QBs. Actually, it looks like there's another team with 3 QBs as well. I feel like that's not a bad way to go if you really have a shaky number one. But I did take Josh Allen first, so I don't see myself taking another QB here. I'm just going to let that go. Obviously, I should have paid attention to the buys of him and Kirk Cousins. Hopefully, it does not line up. That would be very ugly. Let's see. Okay. I am going to go ahead and take another wide receiver here.
Oh, yeah. You have two week 7 buys at QB.
Oh, that's beautiful. Of course it works out like that. So, yeah, I mean, in this draft, obviously I'm going to have to take that third QB now. Thank you for pointing that out.
I see if you find there's probably only 2 that you would want, maybe 3.
Yeah, I mean, options on this list right here, it's going to be hard. Wentz is not even someone I'm looking at all. I don't want any part of Wentz. I'm sure he'll be fine this year. I just know that he has to really pull it together with that offense this year, and I've never believed in Wentz. I watched him play against us for years, was never impressed. I'm not a huge Wentz guy at all. If he couldn't put together a great fantasy season in Indy, I mean, I don't know. He's going to go to a system where he's going to have to throw more. There's going to be more fantasy opportunity for him, so maybe that's his upside. But let's see when it rolls around. Kyle is on the clock.
Taking a good old backup to my RB1,
nice,
Joe Mixon.
Nice. Yeah, not a bad way to go. No one really thinks about that in these best ball drafts here about getting that handcuff, but definitely something that is going to be huge later on in the year, God forbid something happens.
And then a weird wide receiver handcuff. Velus Jones, second command to my previously drafted Darnell Mooney.
Mm-hmm.
The way I see it is I've seen a lot of hype for Velus Jones. I've been a fan of him all offseason pretty much, or at least since he's been drafted. But with Mooney kind of being the number 1, it's wide open for Jones to take that number 2 spot. And I surely think he can fill in. And if he has some good weeks where Mooney doesn't shine, then I'm happy to reap the benefits of both.
Oh, yeah. That's a pick you really can't go wrong with. I think just that team in general is going to take a nice leap this year.
Oh, yeah.
And coming back from that ugly few years that they just had. So, all right, and we're wrapping it up here. Almost ended. I got some heavy receivers. I'm probably going to snag a running back here. Or actually,
you don't want to back up your QBs?
I was just about to say we have one more. I have one more pick left. I'm actually going to have to take a QB here. And you know what? I was going to take Mills, and he just went before me to Cowboy McCoy.
Cowboy McCoy.
I'm not going to take Wentz. I really hate Wentz. I mean, this is kind of a really shitty pick. I'm not excited about it. I'm going to go ahead and take Mariota just to fill in. And
love it.
You know what? As I take Mariota, I, again, did not check his bye week. I need to go do that right now. Let's see here. Okay, 14. We're living. Yeah, there we go.
You just have to hope he doesn't lose the starting job to Ritter. by week 7?
Yeah. Oh, imagine week 7, it's Desmond Ridder on the docket, and my best ball has no QB for the week. Oof.
That'd be incredible. All right, Mike. Looks like our teams are wrapped up. I went with the 2 QB, 2 tight end, 6 RB, 8 receiver. Where you went with the 3-5-8-2.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit similar. You took a QB where I took a running back. But to some extent, you needed to. You needed to take that extra QB because you kind of lucked out with those what are they, the bye weeks.
Yeah. No, yeah, I like this one. I think it went pretty well. We're starting to see some of these ADPs come into place here. So, it's going to get interesting. Week after week, you're going to get a better preview of what to expect in those redraft leagues coming up and even best ball if you want to wait later on here. So, yeah, love the draft. I love what me and you did here. It was nice joining you this morning. I hope you have a great rest of your day here. But other than that, we're all done here.
Well done.
Draft.
I hope you have a fantastic day. Yeah, we'll be live. I think next Wednesday is our scheduled draft. I may not be here. Mike, I might give the reins over to you. And I think Zach said he might join you.
Oh, so okay. Sounds
that'll
good.
That'll be a good one for him to finally join. And all right, Mike. Great drafting with you.
Wrap it up.
Talk to you later.
I'll see you next week.
See ya.